So the recording has started, so I'd like to turn the time over to Jana Scott for our classification talk. Go ahead.
Thank you. Can you hear me if I speak from here? Is it loud enough?
Hear you just fine.
Yeah.
Okay. So as a young girl, I grew up close to the state capitol building, just across the street from the Capitol. And my father worked at the Capitol building, so that ended up being a really big part of our lives when we were younger. Where we would go over to play on the big ice structures that would be around the big parking lot there and climb around, have picnics under the big trees, and lots of bike rides and jogs or runs around the Capitol. So that came to be a really special place in my life, but I had no idea that I would ever grow up and do anything that had anything to do with the Capitol. But it was a fun place to grow up, and from the time I was young, I think my life was filled with experiences with public service, in large part because of my parents and the things that they did. And looking at my life in hindsight at this point, I can see a lot of influence from those early experiences. What else to tell you? So in elementary school, I went to a school that had, well, it was right during the time when there was a real wave of refugees from Vietnam, Cambodia, Laos, and that area. And so I had a lot of experiences that, just interactions with people from other parts of the world. They would frequently give stories during show and tell and talk about their experiences in trying to escape and some of the real hardships that their families had endured. And that touched me as a young girl. And you know, you see all of these things kind of weave in to your full experience when you look at it from this perspective. But as I was thinking about elementary school, that was one of the unique experiences I had that I'm appreciative of. It gave me a broader view of the world when I was young. And so then in high school, I really loved math and science, and I was very interested in being an engineer or a doctor or something of that sort. I wanted to do something to help more children, and so thought about being some kind of a doctor that could specialize in things, children's diseases or pediatrician or something like that, and was exploring a lot of things during those college years. But during my very first semester, I had the chance to go to Washington, D.C. and work in the Utah governor's office, which again kind of opened up a new world to me as I helped kind of coordinate some of the actions between the governor's office and the different congressional offices there, and was in the Hall of States and just saw a lot of different things from a new angle. And so that was a lot of fun. I also worked in an international affairs office while I was there, and again, that expanded my perception and understanding of other countries and other parts of the world. And so when I got to the point of trying to decide for sure what I was going to major in, I kind of explored a lot during those first couple of years. And when I got to the point of saying, okay, I have to pick a major, which direction am I going to go, I decided to go with international relations because of how much I loved the people I had worked with in the international office. And I had worked with a lot of different embassies and done projects, just a lot of fun projects, and really loved those people. So I chose that major, and then also a major in music, and did the two together. And part of the decision, too, for me was that whatever I did with my life, I wanted to do something that helped make life better for children in other places, particularly, children everywhere, really, but my experience up to that point had been very influenced by a lot of the international kinds of things. And so I was very aware of the children of the world and saw so many that didn't have opportunities to really develop their capacity fully, that were stymied for a variety of reasons. And when traveling, there's just nothing I love more than those bright faces of children smiling and enjoying all the things that children enjoy. I love going to schools and seeing children learning. Learning is probably another major theme of my life, and something I love to facilitate and be part of, and love to do myself. One of my greatest sources of joy, I think, is learning new things. I always love to learn. And in fact, that's how I characterized my whole education and my whole life in a lot of ways, always wanting to learn more and understand more. And so as I had thought through all that, I felt like international was a good place to be. And then the music I kept because it was just kind of fun and a great way to also bring a lot of joy to people's lives. And so I went that direction, and during college I had more experiences in hosting international guests, as the Kennedy Center would bring different diplomats to town that often asked me to help escort them or manage different parts of the symposiums and that kind of thing. And I really had great conversations in the car. I really enjoyed that. At one point, a group invited me to come to Switzerland and help with their event. And during that time, I forgot what I was going to tell you about it, but again, it was something that was, I know, one of the first nights there was an interfaith event. And these leaders of various faiths got up and shared some of their feelings and things that they treasured most in life. And that was a really significant shaping experience in my life too, because I felt such kinship with all of these different people of different faiths, different backgrounds, different cultures, different colors, and yet there was such a sense of unity as we were together. And one of the major formative experiences of my life. So then as I finished college, and by the way, I wish I could see all of you. It's really not that much fun speaking to a computer. I know you're there, but I wish I could see you. Anyway, so I finished college. Oh, I got a friend. Thanks, Larry. You know, and this whole thing about children and youth, I think it's one reason this club has been a lot of fun. I think there's so many of us that care about children and youth, and it's fun to see the things that we can do on that front together. I love what all of you are doing. So as I finished college, I kept having this idea. It was right about the time that the Olympics were going to happen in Salt Lake. It was just before that, and my father at the time was assigned to a couple Olympic things, amongst them the security and command, so he was involved in all of the crazy security that was around the games, and also involved in different things with the state Olympic office and helping helping coordinate some of the things between the state and SLOC. And so it was a fun time, but as I was finishing college, I kept having these thoughts about how wonderful it would be to have children from all these different countries come together and to have a celebration of goodwill, of children and their potential, and of international friendship. And it seemed kind of crazy at first, but I just kept thinking about it, and I thought there's nothing that can convey that sense of connection and of love and of caring as children can. And so I started talking to different people in the community and found others who were interested, and ended up going to Washington, D.C. to talk to embassies, and mostly worked with ambassadors' wives to help find groups that would represent their countries. And so in Salt Lake, we had about 45 countries that were going to send groups to represent them, you know, doing cultural performances with traditional music and dress and so forth from their countries. And then September 11th happened, and that changed a lot. I was getting all kinds of texts, and, well, not text back then. It was, I guess it was phone calls, or a lot of faxes and a lot of emails, where people were starting to pull out or be scared, or their countries wouldn't let them travel. A lot of official regulations that wouldn't allow the youth to travel during that time. One of my favorite responses was that of the Koreans. They just decided that they would send more mothers and that everything would be okay. So the Koreans sent a lot of mothers, and anyway, these children came, and they were just beautiful. Each group, each country was so different. The Russians were so serious when they came in, and the group from Trinidad and Tobago was just bubbling over with energy and warmth. And so the Russians, who seemed so cold and kind of just, they were all dressed in black, and they seemed not to relate as much to other people when they first got here. But we had amazing experiences where one time they performed, so all these choirs went out to cities outside of Salt Lake, because we knew that a lot of the Olympic attention and energy was kind of Salt Lake centric, and we wanted other parts of the state to feel involved and be part of it. So these choirs went out to different communities and were hosted by them. State PT or school PTAs helped arrange for the hosting so that they had homestays. and just a lot of other community groups got involved in helping to make the arrangements for this to work. The choirs visited schools that had studied their countries and that had learned phrases in their languages and that kind of thing, and did assemblies and so forth. And then they sang in churches of various faiths. And then for the final day, I think it was a Saturday, they had a big finale concert, and they let us rent out the LDS Conference Center for that. And so all these children came together in a really colorful display of international friendship and goodwill. And that happened just 1 month after September 11th. And I think because of that, it was just absolutely electric. It was just something so beautiful about seeing all of these children together and hearing their voices in harmony. Other groups joined as well, and for the finale they had a men's chorus that came and filled in the bass and the tenor with all these treble voices, and it was a lot of fun. But at that finale concert, the Russians sang a big Russian anthem where they were just grand, big and deep, and then they held out the note, and they went into the funniest, light-hearted version of Jingle Bells, just had the audience just laughing because we were so shocked after the big Russian anthem to have it turn into that. And they then held out that note and went into one of the most stirring versions I've ever heard of America the Beautiful. And coming from Russians, and at a time when our country was kind of wondering what was going on and there was concern about what could be a new era, there was just this incredible feeling of strength and such generosity of the Russians to sing it, and it just was a wonderful thing. There was an immediate standing ovation at the end of it. And anyway, so that was kind of another fun and formative experience, and that led to a job with the state. Jackie Levitt decided she wanted to do some cultural things on the state level, so I ended up doing that for a little while and kind of exploring some options there, and worked under 3 different governors. And during that time, the whole Rotary convention came to Salt Lake City. I guess New Orleans was having a rough time, not in a good place to be holding the convention that they were scheduled to host. And so Salt Lake stepped up and, as you all know, became legendary for their amazing job with such a short time frame. And since I worked for the state, someone from Rotary came to talk to me about that and try to engage us in some aspect of the convention. And so it was that whole experience that led to, that's when I became aware of the Rotary Peace Fellowship and was just drawn to it. I never thought I would study peace or conflict resolution, so I was kind of surprised that that was the direction I was, that I was thinking about it, but it seemed kind of interesting. And in part because I think so many good things in communities get held up by conflict or by attitudes, by a variety of things that just get people kind of stuck. And since my real passion in life is helping young people, well, everyone really, but especially focus on young people, really fully develop and have the opportunities to expand their capacity and so forth, it was kind of an intriguing and interesting idea to study peace and conflict resolution. So I applied for that and was fortunate to have some great Rotarians in Salt Lake that I think were part of the reason I got selected and had that opportunity. I went to England and studied at a place called Bradford, which is sometimes jokingly called Bradistan in the area, because it's mostly like Pakistan with English architecture. There are so many Pakistani people who've moved there, they've kind of taken over the city, and yet it's still this old English architecture. So it's kind of a funny experience because you feel like you're in England, and yet the smells, the food, the signs, everything has this Pakistani flavor to it. And it was a great experience to learn more about Islam and Muslims, and I had colleagues and roommates from different places, and again, that further expanded my world. There were people in the apartment just kind of right above where I was living that had their daily prayers very early in the morning and very late at night, and so it was kind of a new experience there, and one that I enjoyed. And during that time, I'm just looking at a couple quick notes here. Uh, it was just an interesting experience. I was close to all of the major European cities, and so also went to different meetings and things there. But this was kind of my first real Rotary experience. I ended up visiting with Rotarians in a lot of Middle Eastern countries, as well as European, and interesting to see how we all have the same challenges. I mean, everyone everywhere was concerned about the future of Rotary and what to do to keep this alive. And one reason I'm excited about the E-Club concept. And I'm sorry it's taking so long. I was trying to go really fast. That's about my life. Just to kind of finish up from there. So while I was at the program in Bradford, I did some internships with UNICEF and had different exposure to what was happening for children in the world there. When I finished, I had the chance to work as a consultant for UNICEF in their headquarters office in New York, and worked on a project about civic engagement. And one of the really interesting things I found there was that there's lots of talk about engaging youth in, this whole thing of civic engagement was pretty trendy, about engaging youth and making them part of things and asking their opinion, and they would often have situations where they'd set up leaders and these youth so they could have conversations and that kind of thing. But what they almost never talked about was the opportunity for youth to serve. Civic engagement was always about political engagement and challenging and that kind of thing. But there's very little bit about how youth can contribute through service. And so I love all the things that RILA does, all the things that Rotary does to give youth that broader vision of what I think brings the greatest happiness in life. And at the end of the day, when you're looking at conflict resolution and building people and building communities, I mean, service and the kinds of attitudes that we cultivate with Rotary service are at the very heart of making communities better. They're wonderful, they're nice, they seem just good on the face value, I guess. But when you get down to looking at conflict resolution and the core things that create conflicts that endure, there is so much about Rotary and who we are and how we define ourselves that actually really combats very naturally those causes of violence and some of the things that make conflict intractable. So I've come to really appreciate that Rotary is involved in that, and I think Rotary has something to contribute that's very unique because of the kinds of people that it attracts. And so something I continue to work and hope to do more for in the future. And then just lastly, my most recent position or job was working with Prosperity 2020, which was an effort in the state to bring people together to solve some of the challenges to try to help more of our youth succeed. And the thing I loved about it, it was just amazing to see kind of behind the scenes how when you bring people together and get past some of the silos and the prejudices that we hold and even the confusion that I think is sometimes cultivated by press coverage of education, there was a lot of good that people could do in working together. And I saw a lot of ways that Governor Herbert was pretty collaborative and just different things that were happening. And boundaries that had existed, people kind of letting those go and starting to talk and have better conversations. And that was really rewarding. So that's my work. I'm Cameron, who is my best friend ever, and as my father describes him, he's the only one that could ever make my heart sing. And we enjoy the outdoors. We do lots of scouting lately. He's doing a lot to help our scouts have good experiences and getting those boys to do some big adventures. And sometimes I get to go too. And so on the point of children, children have really been the focus of my career and just of my efforts in life. And yet it's kind of funny, things never turn out the way you expected. Having children has been much more of a miracle than I ever expected. So the children of the world in many ways have become my children and have had lots of opportunities to hopefully bless their lives and make their lives better. And a lot of times that actually ends up coming in working with parents. It's not always just about the children, but there's so many opportunities to make a difference for people, and I love being part of a group that feels similarly and gives so much of their time to help make those things happen. So there's a summary of my life. Are we on schedule?
You know, it's interesting. From the moment I met Jana when I delivered the books from Paul, the one word that keeps coming to mind every time I speak to you is the word thoughtful. There's just a peace and a thoughtfulness about you that just emanates, and I appreciate that. And so it just shares, it shows in your willingness to serve and look for those opportunities to touch the lives of those that need that hand up. So thank you, Jana. Uh,
Sorry that my health has not been so great lately. That has been the one down, the frustration lately. I'm certainly not working at full capacity, and appreciate your patience as I try to figure some of that out too.
well,
Great presentation, Jana. Great presentation.
any questions for Jana? We'll open it up since we have the opportunity. Anybody have a question?
I don't have a question. I just have a comment for those that might be online. Most online probably know, but for those that aren't online that are members of this club, I don't think people realize how difficult it is to be an ambassadorial peace scholar. Every year there's only 100 selected out of 33,000 Rotary clubs and 500.
The worst part, you spend your life studying war. That's the worst part. Study the worst of humanity for 2 whole years.
They just don't throw that out to anyone, and she's very gifted and humble, you can tell, but very gifted and very talented, and we were honored to have her represent our district, District 5420, as an ambassador or a peace scholar. And just a little side note, her father went to the abbreviated program that Rotary puts on, so the two of them have been heavily invested in this district in promoting peace and especially bringing a lot of attention to Utah as far as ambassadors. So we appreciate all you're doing.
Thanks.
Thank you, Jana. Thank you, Kelly. And we're lucky to have you as part of our club.
Amen.
Let's rock and roll.
All right, let's do it. I will stop the recording right now so that those that want to log in